Well, that's the kind of morning you have when you haven't done this in a little bit and you're getting back on track. Looks like we are live with our audio, and now I'm going to check the website, make sure we are also live with our video. So that I know you can see me. I know what you're thinking. Hasn't it been a while since we did this? Good morning, Colleen Learn. Yes, it has been a little while since we did this. So I see we're live on YouTube. And I might be a little loud. So let's bring that back a little bit. And I am live on YouTube too. That is amazing that everything actually worked the first time. That is incredible because that does not usually happen. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Pastor David Smith here at Belvedere First Assembly of God. It has been a little bit since I did an online devotional, but I have been meaning to get back into the swing of it. And so it may be a few stops and starts before we get there. It has been an interesting, I guess it's been about a month and a half since I've done the online devotional. And it's been crazy, as things tend to be. I always joke, I was on a group message with a bunch of other pastors, and when I hear what they're going through and what the major concerns are where they're at, sometimes I feel like I have a completely different life than them, or different sort of ministry. Not that theirs is, invalid in any way, or that mine is better in any way, but it's certainly different in that a lot of times in our church we really do deal with some real issues and some real hurting people, and really in the depths of when the enemy has a hold of people's lives, and God has been good to us, man. I couldn't do this without Him constantly pulling me back and moving me forward, which is kind of why, in order to get back kind of in the swing of Jeremiah, I haven't decided that Jeremiah is the direction I want to go, only because it is there's so much to it. Like, I could almost do like 10 chapters of Jeremiah, take a break, do something in the New Testament, and then come back and do some more chapters of it. There's just an awful lot there to it. But and you can kind of see it on my wall here, these words that I have. If you ever look in my office, I have 4 words written on my wall. The 4 words are Yada, Yatsar, Nathan, Kadesh, right? And those 4 words are found in Jeremiah 1:5. In Jeremiah 1:5 it says, well, let's start with this. I'm going to start in verse 1 and go all the way to verse 10. It says, the words of Jeremiah, son of Hilkiah, one of the priests living in Anathoth at the time in the territory of Benjamin. The word of the Lord came to him in the 13th year of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah. It also came throughout the days of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, until the 5th month in the 11th year of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah, when the people of Jerusalem went into exile. The word of the Lord came to me. I chose you before I formed you. In the womb I set you apart. Before you were born, I appointed you to be a prophet to the nations. But I protested, oh no, Lord God, look, I don't know how to speak, since I am only a youth. And the Lord said to me, do not say I am only a youth, for you will go to everyone I send you to, and speak whatever I tell you. Do not be afraid of anyone, for I will be with you to rescue you. This is the Lord's declaration. Then the Lord reached out his hand, touched my mouth, and told me, I have now filled your mouth with my words. See, I have appointed you today over nations and kingdoms, to uproot and tear down, to destroy and demolish, and to plant. Oh, good morning, Penny. It's good to have you here. The reason I always come back to this verse, the 4 words, Yada Yatsar Nathan Kadesh, are kind of my compass, meaning when I come, listen, even as a pastor, some days you come into the office and you're like, man, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? I can tell you many ministers came in during COVID and they're like, Lord, Am I still following your calling? Am I doing this because I want to do it, or am I doing this because it's what you want me to do? Even when I came in this morning and I was asking the Lord, what word do you want me to speak over the devotional? I came to this place that I don't want to do online devotionals. I don't want to preach from the pulpit. I don't want to minister to people because it makes me feel better, or because I get something out of it, or because it fulfills me in some way. I only want to do it because it is what the Lord is calling me to do. And the only way to verify that is every now and then you put it on the altar and say, okay, Lord, this is yours. This ministry, this church, everything is yours. And if it would work better without me, then Lord, put the right person in there. Lord, if you're going to work through me in this, then God, give me the direction. Lord, give me the word, give me the thing that you want me to speak and to do. And this morning as I was laying there, this is the word that came to me. Yada Yatsar Nathan Kadesh. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I consecrated you as a prophet. I gave you to the nation. So the words yada mean no. In the CSB, which I'm reading out of, it says, I chose you before I formed you. And, the word is yada in Hebrew, which means to know. And then the second word, I formed you in the womb, which means yatsar. To form is like when you put the clay on the wheel and it spins around, and the potter applies pressure, and that pressure forms things. Nathan is, or Kadesh is, I consecrated you, meaning I set you aside. I said you are special. You're going to be something different. And then Nathan is, and then I gave you to the world. You are my gift to the world. Your giftings are not to make you look better or to make people more impressed with you or anything like that, but the giftings that God gives you are so that he can give you to others. So we are like bread that is made in the oven, but we are made to be broken, right? That's why Christ is the broken bread, that the breaking of our bread, the breaking of our lives, the taking of that piece of who we are and giving it to others is like a nourishment to them, that God is making us a nourishment to others. And as I was studying this morning, the word yada is really where I stopped at, because the word yada is to know. And I think a lot of times when we talk about how God knows us, or when we say we're known, that our image is an image of being found out, right? Like all of a sudden somebody knows us. They know what what was the movie? I Know What You've did last. I never saw the movie, but the implication of the title is I know what you did last summer, meaning you've done bad, and I know you've done bad, and now you're found out. And a lot of times in our culture, that's how it comes across, right? That to be known is to be found out, to be exposed, to be vulnerable, right? In the sense, though, when God is using it, it's not about being found out. I mean, God knows every vile, terrible, whatever thing you've done. God knows, right? But that doesn't stop him from loving you. The thing that we can't wrap our heads around is that God exists both inside and outside time. That God is the beginning and the end. Like he is the creator who creates a thing, and he is at the end of all things to judge them, whether they're good or evil, whether they go into paradise or into damnation. That God is at all places at all time. That he exists outside of everything and above everything. And the question always that gets us is, if God knows what we're going to do, then did we really choose to do it because God already knew we did it? It's that predestination argument. If we're predestined to do something, does that mean God made us do it and therefore he's responsible for what we did? And there's just these places that you come to where you realize that he is so beyond us that we have to have a little bit of faith to just know that whatever he's given us and however he set this before us, that he hasn't set us up to fail. Now, he knows we're going to fail, but he's given us every provision not to fail. And not only has he given us every provision not to fail, but even when we do fail, he's already made allowances for that. So when you go to Deuteronomy 31, in Deuteronomy 31, what you have is Moses is about to step down, and Joshua is going to take his place. And first he goes to the people, and Moses says to the people, I can no longer act as your leader. The Lord has told me you will not cross the Jordan. So he's told Moses, you're not going to go in. The Lord your God is the one who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy nations before you. He will drive them out. Joshua is the one who shall cross ahead of you, as the Lord has said. And then he goes to Joshua and he says, Joshua, be strong and courageous. Don't be terrified or afraid of them. For the Lord your God is the one who will go with you. He will not leave you or abandon you. Joshua, he's got a destiny for you. He has set you apart. He is going to send you into this place, and God has already made provision for your victory because he will not leave or abandon you. God never leaves or abandons you. Here's the problem: is sometimes we leave and abandon God. In fact, later on in the verse, he's speaking and he says, and when many troubles and afflictions come to them, he tells Moses, you're about to rest with your people, and these people, he says, the Lord said to Moses, verse 16, you are about to rest with your fathers, and these people will soon prostitute themselves with foreign gods of the land they are entering. They will abandon me and break the covenant I made with them. So the idea of the covenant here, the covenant is that if you obey the Lord and you follow the Lord and you do the things that he says, that he's going to bless you and you're going to be the head and not the tail and all these great things. But if you break the covenant, then bad things are going to happen to you. And he's already established this and set it up and let Israel know this is the covenant and this is what you've got to keep. And then he's telling Moses, but I know they're going to break the covenant. I know they're going to go into this land and they're going to worship the Baals and the Asherahs and the Els and all the other deities of the Canaanite deities that they have. But God has already made a provision even for that. And even when we abandon him, he does not abandon us. Now listen, we still face the consequences of our action and our sin, because what we do has consequences, right? But he doesn't abandon us even in the midst of our consequences, even in the midst of the things that are going on. He doesn't leave us there. And so it says that, even though I like this because the Song of Moses is in chapter 32. And God literally says, Moses, I want you to write down this song for your people, because when they abandon me and when things go wrong, I want them to know that there's still going to be a way of redemption, that the Lord is still going to come through for them. Another one of my favorite stories about how the Lord already kind of knows what's going to happen is Elijah. On Mount Carmel, Elijah has the biggest moment of his life, where he literally stands before 500 prophets of Baal and calls down fire. And God gives a visible miracle in the sight of Ahab, the king, and all of Israel, and absolutely proves that he is the God of Israel, that he is the one true God in all of this. And it's the stuff preachers dream of, right? Like what if I'm having a service and all of the people who stand against the word of God in our nation come to this service, and they're like, you know what? We know God isn't real, and we're here to show you. And all of a sudden, God visibly manifests in a tangible way. In this case, fire comes out from heaven and consumes the offering, and it's just the best moment of his life. And in the shadow of the best moment of his life, he runs ahead of the chariot of Ahab all the way back to Samaria, to the capital of Samaria. But when Ahab gets in there and talks to Jezebel, Jezebel twists what's happened, and Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah had done. This is in 1 Kings 19, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, may the gods punish me and do so severely if I don't make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Then Elijah became afraid and immediately ran for his life. Now, if you've ever been... The only time I could think when I was like really afraid and ran, honestly, is when I was younger and there were police involved, or somebody was chasing us because there were kids, and we all, we were doing dumb stuff for which we should have been chased, caught, and punished. But in that moment, that's not what you're thinking is, man, I deserve what's happening. What you're thinking is, oh my gosh, something bad is going to happen. And so you scatter and run. The amazing thing here is that God knows the direction Elijah is going to run. Now, we know from other stories that he had places he could have run to in Sidon. There was a widow in Sidon, which would have been to the northeast of where he was at. He could have run to the northeast and hid out with that widow. He could have run a lot of different places. But where he ends up going, and where God knows he's going to go, is he begins running for Mount Horeb. So Mount Horeb was the mountain that Moses, in Deuteronomy, right? Like Moses would meet God on that mountain. And Elisha knows that this woman is after his life. And so he's running. And in his heart, the direction he runs is to the mountain of God. He's going to go to the place where he knows God has met with others. And so he wants God to meet with him. And so he takes off for Mount Horeb. The problem is, if you look on a map, it would be like running across the state of Illinois. Well, not quite that big, because I think Illinois is actually bigger than Israel, oddly enough. I mean, the United States is a lot bigger than you think, and Israel's a lot smaller than you think. But it would still be like, I think it's like 20, 40, 80 miles. I mean, it is a long way. He's running from the north of the northern kingdom, where Mount Carmel is, all the way to Mount Horeb, which is beyond the southern kingdom. So he's going to go through Judah. He's going to go through all of that. But what's amazing is it's, at this point, it says, but he went a day's journey into the wilderness. After he ran for his life, went a day's journey into the wilderness. He sat down under a broom tree and prayed that he might die. He said, I have had enough. Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. And he lay down and slept under the broom tree. And suddenly an angel touched him. The angel told him, get up and eat. He looked, and there was bread. There was at his head a loaf of bread baked over hot stones, and a jug of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord returned a second time and touched him. He said, get up and eat, for the journey ahead will be too much for you. So he got up, ate and drank, and then on the strength of that food he walked 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. He entered a cave and spent the night there. And of course, you know what's going to happen in that cave if you've read the story, that God is going to meet him there. But the amazing thing is that the bread was already prepared, right? Because, I mean, it could have been manifest divinely, right? I mean, God could just poof and bread is there. From my experience, I'm guessing somebody somewhere made a loaf of bread, not understanding why they were making it, and the angel took the loaf that they made and they brought it to Elijah. And that there was already a provision. So however God did it, he knew Elijah's going to end up under this broom tree. He'd already made provision. I heard an evangelist preach this once, and he said, God knew you were coming, so he baked a cake, right? He had all of these things already ready for him, not in the place where he was called to and that God was sending him to, and the place that God had, said, this is where you're going to go, but instead in the place where he knew Elijah would run when he was wounded. That in those times where you're wounded and you're hurt, there are things you run to, and some of those things are godly, and some of those things are most definitely not. But that God knows the places that you run to when you're hurt, and that he's already made provision for you. What Elijah needed even more than the bread and the water was he needed to hear the voice of God. He needed to know that God was still on his side when all the world had turned against him and people were hunting him down. He needed to know that God was still on his side. And so God had already prepared a place, already prepared a tree that he could, and it's a broom tree, it's a juniper tree. Angie Wade, I'll brag on her a little bit, when her and Josh were being called to go pastor the church that they're at now, and they were leaving our church. She bought me, I like bracelets, and I'm not wearing it today, and I should have worn it today. I was going to go grab it, but I was already late getting up and getting on the broadcast. But she gave me a bracelet, and on the bracelet are 5 juniper seeds, right? That those were the seeds of the broom tree, the juniper tree, the broom tree that's planted here, the place where when Elijah has to go and get provision. I love it that when the disciples come to Christ and Christ tells them, I have bread that you don't even know about, right? Like there is something that feeds my soul that you have no idea. And here's the question I have for you. Do you have something from God that feeds your soul when everything else is cut off, when you're not getting any likes on social media, when no one's calling you on the phone, when even your spouse, your husband and your wife are indifferent to your suffering, they're not even listening to you when you're really hurt? I see this all the time in marriage, that one spouse is really wounded and really hurt, and they're trying to tell the other spouse how wounded and hurt, but it comes out as anger or fear or anxiety or depression. It comes out in a way they don't mean it to, and their spouse hears what they're saying but not what they're meaning. And there has to be a place even beyond that. Even those people closest to you don't know you like God knows you, and they can't hear you like God can hear you. And so that's why you have to have a place with God that's beyond what anyone else does, says, or can give you. That there has to be a nourishment from him that is from him alone. And lastly, let's head over to Psalms 37. We'll close on this. I say we'll close on this, every head bowed now. Psalm 37:23 says, "This person's steps are established by the Lord, and he takes pleasure in his way. Though he falls, he will not be overwhelmed, because the Lord supports him with his hand." A person's steps are established by the Lord, and he takes pleasure in his way. Though he falls, he will not be overwhelmed, because the Lord supports him with his hand. that the Lord has ordered your steps. He's made a path. He has a destiny for you. He has set before you life and death. He has set before you riches of reward. He has set before you an eternal way in which you can go. And He understands that you are almost certainly not going to make it all the way there on your first try or your second try or your third try, that it may take you a time or two, it may take you a day or two, it may take you a little bit of failing and a little bit of falling and a little bit of struggle to get there. But that you're not going to be overwhelmed, that He is not setting you on a path in which you're destined to fail, but He is setting you on a path in which you are destined to win, that you are destined to be in the presence of God, that you are destined to make it to the end of the race, that you are destined to be with Him one day, that He has moved heaven and earth to know you, to let you know that there is one person in this whole universe that truly knows you, the one that formed you, the one that made you, the one that set you aside and consecrated you and called you holy and said you're something special, that person who knows you has made a way for you, and you're not going to be overwhelmed because He has ordered your steps. He already knows how you're going to lay your head down on your pillow tonight. You're going to go through the rest of the day. It's almost 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And it may be 9, 10, 11, 12. It may be 2 o'clock in the morning before you finally get to close your eyes and sleep. And God already knows how the journey today is going to find you. And He's already made provision for you, so that you're not going to be overwhelmed. And when you wake up in the morning, I love what the book of Lamentations says in chapter 3, when you wake up in the morning, His mercies are already new. So take comfort in that. Know that He is there. Be real. Be loved.